15th of June, 1998. H was floating, moving in a different time. His control over his body was perfect. His years of training, dedication, conditioning had all led to these 9 minutes. Three-minute rounds of flowing, balletic motion. It was the second round, and the action was following the course of the first. H was fighting in the finals of the English Amateur Boxing Association. As the South of England champion, he was fighting his northern counterpart, Henry Bugle Boy Mancini. They called him Bugle Boy because he played the bugle when he wasn't boxing. He didn't play it well. In fact, he could barely toot out 3 blind mice. But he played it, and the press latched onto it, an angle for their human interest stories. H scowled every time he thought about it. Fuck Mancini and fuck his bugle. They say you need good lips to play brass. By the time H was through pounding Mancini's face, the man would have to take up the guitar. The arena, a sports centre in Birmingham, was packed. 3,000 people, punters, minor celebrities, the country's amateur boxing cognoscenti, and they were all cheering for H, because H was putting on a show and making the artistry of boxing look like the easiest thing in the world. Despite media spin, Mancini was a tough, stocky, big-boned kid from Hume, Manchester's equivalent to the South Bronx. He was a bully. With a jaw carved from the concrete of the council flats he grew up in, Mancini could take a punch. He thought nothing of wading through 2, 3, or 4 of his opponent's punches to land 1 of his. And Mancini could punch. He was a banger. He'd bulldoze his opponents, not only taking their blows, but flaunting the fact that he can take their blows and still keep coming. The public liked watching Mancini not because he was good, but because he was exciting. A bit like Nigel Benn in the early years. But the public also liked watching H. H wasn't a banger. He was a dancer. Slim, lean, and whip it fast. He didn't just dance, he could punch as well. But he didn't have Mancini's weight of punch. On his way to his final bout, his knockouts were fewer, his journey was less spectacular in some ways, but no less decisive. Where Mancini would land the spectacular blow that would separate his opponent from his senses, H would land 3 that would put his man down, unable to beat the count, stunned, but not out. And so, the hype leading up to this fight was all about how the bugle boy with a knockout blow could handle the cold-eyed shuffler. H was called the shuffler because his patented move was the Ali shuffle. Having seen the great man do it countless times on video, H had imitated and then practiced the move to perfection, to the point where he had made it his own. It was now somewhere between the Ali shuffle and the Michael Jackson moonwalk. Whenever H had an opponent on the run, or if it was a closely fought bout and H wanted to momentarily bamboozle an opponent, he would begin shuffling his feet and gliding smoothly around the ring. There were those who thought he was showboating, but most people loved the entertainment. Either way, H's smooth, fluid movements would invariably bring approval. For H, the shuffle wasn't so much arrogance as an expression of fun, the almost childlike joy he took in his sport and his ability to do it well. He reveled in his ability to make what he did look easy, and the crowd responded, loved him for it. And so it was that halfway through the second round of the finals of the English Amateur Boxing Association, H began to shuffle, but only after peppering Mancini with any amount of stiff lefts that caused the bugle boy's lips to bulge, only after a sweet 1, 2, 3 combination, the 3 being an uppercut that jolted Mancini's head back, the sweat flying from his close-cropped head. Only after a body shot that doubled the bully and bugle boy from Hume, only after all these things did H finally allow Mancini to close in. And when Mancini did, H promptly dropped his hands to his sides and shuffled his feet in a blur of motion that carried him out of harm's way. The crowd began to rise. The front sections at first, then further back throughout the arena, as a roar of applause, approval, and love built to a crescendo, crashing around H with the force of a waterfall. For the first time in his life, H knew what it meant to feel drunk, intoxicated, inebriated on sheer ability. Mancini stood, floundering, in the center of the ring. H could see that he was bemused, befuddled, and embarrassed. Through swollen eyes, he glared at H, and the crowd roared. Like a mammal reared in water and finding himself on land for the first time, Mancini was confused. Life wasn't supposed to be like this. Movement was supposed to be fluid. Taking in oxygen was not supposed to be something you thought about, and bashing opponents was supposed to come easy. None of this was true. H watched as with resolve Mancini again went for him. Bravely, he stepped forward, glaring, murder in his eyes. Rat-a-tat-tat. H peppered him with light, fast punches. Mancini brushed them aside and swung. Air. He missed. H was gone. Kept moving forward. H stopped shuffling. He was dancing up on his toes. Bang! A right to the side of Mancini's head. Mancini swung. H bobbed under the blow. Bang! Another left to Mancini's face, the Bugle Boy's lips this time, and Mancini's mouth sagged. He was trying to breathe. His mouth hung open, gasping for air. H in again, combination, 1, 2, 3, bang, bang, bang. Mancini lunged, grabbed onto the shuffler, clinging, holding. Break. The referee stepped in and separated the combatants. His left eye closing now, Mancini again came in like a bull, all upper body beef, looking for the blow that would put an end to this. And again, H shuffled, just out of reach. He was playing to the crowd, returning the love that they sent towards him in waves. Ding ding. The bell rang to end the round. With all the noise in the arena, only the referee heard it and had to step between the fighters, sending them back to their respective corners. On their way, they passed each other. "You gonna keep dancing all night, bitch?" "Maybe. I thought blacks were supposed to be tough." H let this lie as he floated to his corner. Nick and Matt, his corner men, slid through the ropes and into the ring. With the precision of switch watch manufacturers, they set to work. A stool was planted in the corner. H was pulled into it. A bucket of cold water with a sponge in it was slapped to the side. Matt, the 16-year-old sponge boy, put his hand in H's mouth, pulled out his gum shield, dropped it into the bucket. He then dipped the sponge into the water and mopped H's face, squeezing the cooling water over the crisp, clean cut of his features. Matt's father, Nick, a grizzled Irishman from the slums of Belfast, had already dropped to one knee. He looked piercingly into H's eyes and spoke with calm but urgent authority. "What'd he say?" "Stand and fight." "What?" "Stand and fight. He wants me to stand and fight him." "Forget him. He's an animal. This is it, son. All we've been working for. Look at me. It's in the fucking bag. Just keep moving. Moving, working a jab, sticking it in his face and shuffling. Look at me." H's eyes wandered over to look at Mancini in the far corner. Nick yanked his face back. "Keep keeping out of trouble. Stay loose, stay focused. Remember everything we worked for back in the gym. This is yours. This is your day. Fuck this Mancunian arsehole. You're gonna make him pay the price for turning up in the same ring as you. What's the price? What's the price?" But H was no longer listening. His breathing was easy. His head felt light. He deliberately slowed his breathing further. His gaze was clear. While Nick talked, H stared, clear-eyed across the ring. In contrast to the calm efficiency of his own corner, Mancini's was a mess. Blood oozed from the cut above Mancini's eye. His mouth was swollen and cut. 2 cotton buds were jammed up his nostrils. One of his cornermen feverishly slapped grease over his red raw eyebrows and forehead. Another slopped water down his chest into his trunks. "Look at me, H. What's the price?" "Defeat." Not defeat, annihilation. Crush this guy like a bug. Leave no doubt in the judges' minds. There's no doubt already, but I want even less. Keep doing what you're doing. No change to game plan. DMS. Dancing, moving, shuffling. This is the last round you'll ever fight as an amateur. Make it one to remember. Your next fight is as a professional, and we gotta make some real fucking money with the big dogs. Now go out and jab his fucking head off, H. What are you? Matt took H's gum shield and slipped it back into H's mouth. "I'm a champ." "I can't hear you." "I'm a champ." "I can't fucking hear you." "I'm a champ." "You're a fucking god. Now go out there and prove it." Ding. Last round. Nick struggled up from arthritic knees back to his feet. He and Matt both kissed H before climbing out the ring. H rose. He looked across at Mancini. The adrenaline spurted, still coursing through his veins. He shook his arms off, rocked his head from side to side, working out the kinks. He eased his gum shield into a more comfortable place in his mouth. The referee now waved him and Mancini to the center of the ring, looked them both in the eye, paying special attention to the bloody Mancini. He was happy. As far as he was concerned, they were both able to box. He waved them together, stepped back. H looked at Mancini, Mancini glared back. H banged his boxing gloves together, ready to get it on. Years later, when H looked back on his performance against the short, stocky fighter from Manchester, he would always find goose pimples rising on his arms. Pure adrenaline, not blood, flowed through your veins, moving so fucking fast you think you're about to defy gravity and lift off the face of the planet. But now, with the benefit of those added years, H realized what he'd been experiencing was the celebration of unbridled, unfettered, pure and unadulterated, 100% concentrated youth.